Well, excited for the season, new phase of the game for us, and promising young group, and so I'm excited about the season. Obviously, it tends to be a sprint, but it'll be an enjoyable season, I think. So, yeah.
How good of a team do you have?
We'll get right at it there. That's a good question. I think the ceiling for it is pretty high. So I would say I think the talent is deep. We replaced some positions that were really critical. So I think I'm expecting pretty good things. So, but it's early, as most coaches will tell you.
I'm not sure how many questions you can actually get answered during the preseason, but were some answered to some degree?
Yeah, the big thing is, you've seen it in a few years, we try to control the loads of the players, so the amount of times, the amount of high-speed distance they're covering, the minutes they're playing, so, and also then introduce some of the guys to the speed of the game. So those games are really good for that purpose. And then also because we have the way our offense is set up and the way we play our tactics, it's pretty complex. So for them to get acclimated to that speed, also understanding the movements based on other movements, defensive shape that we play, all good. So it's just going to take some time, I think. Hopefully, again, early in part of the season, you really just have to find solutions quickly and get results. So that's kind of what the focus is right now.
You said manage minutes, but it seems like one guy that could play, 180 minutes is Malthus.
Yeah, did you see his? Well, if we showed you his numbers, it's crazy. When we did the analytics on him and ran it, he was putting in pro numbers at that time of year. So we had to pull him back a little bit. And then we have some injuries and some, just guys sitting out right now. So we just had to manage it as best we could.
What did Jalen Henderson bring to your team last year, and what are you looking for him to do this year?
Yeah, Jalen is going to be a guy that we feel is going to have a pretty significant role, and I think he's embracing that. I also think the additions we brought into the team will hopefully take some of that load off of him in the sense of, like Ashmere was a good guy with him, but to have a 1-2 punch wasn't good enough for where we expect to go. So we've kind of added some pieces that should take some load off of him, but also accentuate what he does well, which is find good spaces, gives a chance to score goals, and he scores goals. So I'm excited for Jalen to get the opportunity to play with this system and how it works, and maybe I think he should flourish in the system.
So there were times last year when there was just too many people marking him and he just didn't have any breathing room?
No, I think that's not as much the case as we were snake bit last year, if you all remember. It was just like we had guys that could score that just didn't, and couldn't have the answer to that. But Jalen was one of the ones that could finish. And he wasn't isolated in any sense of shape because he plays in a position that he kind of can get himself where he needs to be, even if he's, draws two-man coverage, doesn't matter. So for us, right now, it's because we have guys that you have to be worried about in matchups. It should release him to kind of find more space. So don't know if you're right, but I think he's still, with the way he played last year, even in those kind of defensive schemes, I think he did fine.
One of those guys, obviously, how do you say his name? Gunnar.
Yeah, Gunnar.
Okay, and how did you pinpoint him and bring him here?
Well, actually, he was in Florida. He's a Cayman Islands kid, believe it or not, and he was in Florida, Eastern Florida. We knew him there. He just decided to go a certain route in his career, but then when it came chance for him to come back, we jumped at it. Now, you saw his speed; it's world-class stuff. So we're excited about that as well, and that's the other component that we'll get. So right now, I think the pieces that we have, Gunnar included, will hopefully take some of that load off of Jalen. But look, if Jalen scores 12 goals, great. If he takes it, that's fantastic.
You mentioned losing some pieces other than Mazzaferro and Schaefer and Checho. You didn't lose much defensively. Now, let's speak about that part of thing. I know you've added some good pieces.
Yeah, and both those guys, Mazzaferro and Schaefer. Well, Schaefer was a first-round draft pick, and Mazzaferro is still playing for Austin FC. And then we lost, Ashmere, who's also, I think, has a he's either going to become a doctor pretty soon or start that career, or he's going to keep playing. So for us, we lost some pieces, but for me, defensively, it's a big question mark. What we did is we found what we felt was like a goalkeeper that we feel really comfortable with in Felix. So I think that's going to take some of the burden off those backs because, asking Alan to do what he did last year as a freshman was tough. So right now I think we have pretty good depth in that area as well.
Schaefer really didn't get tested until that last exhibition match. Is that what you saw in him before
Yeah.
we could see it?
Yeah, and the things that you don't see are the real value he adds to the team, which is his voice, his organization. But when he has to come up with a save, that's what you want a goalkeeper to do. And he's 6'3" or 6'4", and he got good range, and his pedigree is amazing. So he was the USL 2 goalkeeper of the year. I think it was 2 years ago, which is the amateur league for all the college players to go to. So we wanted him. We initially recruited him, and he decided to go to Santa Clara, and now he has his last year. He's coming back to us. So really excited to have him.
So the last couple of seasons, you've begun with some really high-quality opponents and tight games that didn't go your way. So you opened with Seattle. So I guess like a 5-0 win would be great, right?
Well, yeah, you would think like that'd be a nice mentality to have, but his understanding the men's game, the parity is amazing. Yeah. So we lost to the national champs 3-2, and actually statistically we outplayed them and had more chances, but that's our game. And Seattle's going to come in here ranked, probably around 15 in the country. So, and they're a good team coached by a really good coach. So there's no, and then you play Mercer, who has been the NCAA for the last 4 or 5 years, and they play in a style that is kind of stifling, and it's a difficult team to play against. And he beat me for the first time last year, which has been a long time. So my opinion on this is like we have last year's schedule was a little bit extraordinary in a lot of, but that all kind of fell into place. I think this year we have still a really strong schedule, but I think we have a more manageable schedule, and not in the sense of like just having all these big fish coming in here.
So all that being said, if good competition right away, if it can swing your way and you get a couple of wins, psychologically, what do you think that can do just to set you guys up for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty answerable question, no doubt. I mean, you always want momentum because in the college season, especially in the college soccer season, momentum's everything. And if you get going on the right foot, generally you have a good season. I've always had teams that sometimes I take a heavy load early in the season, but then we gain ground as we go. But I think this year is like the whole focus is to get the results, get the momentum, and then let's get it moving. But we do, I think, in all honesty, we have a team that's not young. It's an experienced team. It's just a new team.
Coach, what do you expect out of a guy like Pedro Fife? Comes in here last year, obviously all rookie team, preseason, all conference this year. What has he brought to this program?
Look, the kid's a guy that, you spoke to him, so you know his maturity level. He's just a quality kid, and there's that charisma a player has, and that has an impact just naturally over a group of guys, and his demands on the team as a freshman were just something to be in awe of. So he kind of earned this leadership role, not because he just went out and started yelling at guys. He just did it because of the way he approaches his life and the way he approaches the game. So he was a guy that was supposed to sign a pro contract until they signed Messi at Inter Miami. So then that all reshaped things for a young player. So now he's here, which we were so happy about, and now he feels the pressure of like trying to figure it out here. And he, honestly, the kid's other part of that story that you probably didn't hear from him is that he wasn't really on track to be a college athlete. In the time he had to get his academics, everything sorted out, and get himself ready for school, he did it. And then I think he's like a 3.5 or 3.6 student here. So like he's just a kid that you want to let him have some of the control about how the locker room is run, and he's earned it and does a very good job. So I'm excited for him. I don't want him to feel the pressures of being a sophomore, what we call a sophomore slump, but I know that he's already trying to put that on his shoulders. So I'm trying to take it off and trying to let him.
Really the odd man out in the Messi deal?
No, it's not the way it's looked. So the way it works is like, and I only know this because the inner workings of that was my former assistant was, and so when Messi came in, the whole structure of how things were going to work from then on out was no longer bringing Inter Miami kids up through it. It was more we're going to find these pieces to fit around Messi. You see, so it's not exactly it hits him, but it changed their plans and direction for Pedro.
What do you think about the American Conference this year? Any thoughts about how it looks to be shaping up, or who's a team to watch for?
I think it's going to be exactly what it's been in the last few years. I think it's a very good conference, and I think in general the parity is very similar, and the games will be tight. I think the matchups are good, the coaches are good, the emphasis of how we play. The majority of all the fields except for one is a turf field. So for us, it's been a very good conference, and I expect it'll be the same this year.
I'm glad you mentioned that because since we're at the IPF, it's just Temple, none of the other non-conference matchups on. Okay, gotcha. Right. You mentioned Pedro's intelligence, guys that I spoke to, Malthus, Loro, Jalen especially. It must be nice to have such an intelligent team where you don't have to teach too much.
Yeah, and that's the other thing you do when we have video sessions or we're doing tactics. The amount they absorb and the amount you can give them is so different than having a bunch of freshmen in the room who are literally just going to say yes to you and they have no idea. So for me, it's you can give them more and feed them more. So that's why I was saying to you earlier, like if I can get the tactics to them early and they can absorb it and they continue to grow, I think the better picture of what they'll become is going to be late in the season. If we get it right, like last year, you could see when we played, there was a difference in the two teams we played. Even if we lost the game, there was a difference. We created a lot of chances and a lot of movement and a lot of the ball. The problem was we just didn't have those final pieces on either end. So we just had to get that cleaned up, and I think now it's exciting.
You said earlier the season's a sprint. Is there any updates on the talk of changing the men's soccer look?
I think that everybody understands the reality of that the only place it isn't happening is college soccer. Every place else, that's the way it is. So I think right now with the NCAA, if you could give me and be a fortune teller for all the whole whatever's happened in the NCAA right now, I'll jump on that bandwagon. I'm betting man with you. But right now, I think if it all washes out, and I think the way that the sport's growing and will become part of the fabric of the NCAA, I think it'll eventually get there. I think it has to, because I think the biggest conferences want that. So we'll see.
And it'll be a break. That's
yeah.
How it'll strike.
Yeah. It'll be a break.
A first half and a second half.
And it'll be honestly, it's almost the exact same amount of days and the exact same amount of games, but it's spread out to where you can be a student athlete. You can play a game on the weekend, not have one in the midweek, and you can play a game on the weekend. So you have time to rest, prepare, and play. And the quality of the games will be much better.
And you'll decide the championship when it's not snowing.
Right, exactly. And you're not fighting football and the start of basketball. Absolutely right.
Not going to Lexington, 28 degrees.
Exactly. And trust me, I serve on the committee. I know how cold it was out there. Mm-hmm. And it's so cold.
Thursday is Vuvuzela night. Do you bring earplugs? What's your approach generally?
Oh man, I don't know who brought that into the mix, but Vuvuzela. So I mean, I guess if some people like it, great. I'm not one of those guys, but I'm going to encourage people if that's where they want to express themselves. And
you don't hear anything, right?
No. The only people I hear at times is my wife. When she sits behind. That's the only I hear.
Like, bring on the
only because I think it's been conditioned over years. Like,
she's got one.
Yeah, exactly. She could say Bob, and I'm like, what? It's like one of those things. No, these are good questions, but I do think I'm excited about the opportunity this year. It should be fun, and I think if we can get things moving in the right direction, it'll also be fun. Two, it'll be exciting to watch. So, cool.
All right.
Thank you very much.